renowned jazz saxophonist and brain cancer survivor, invites us to look at the many worlds of his guests, with conversations that cover all the arts, human resilience, a little bit of politics, and a lot of humour.
You can't fail to have a fantastic time.
Hey everyone, how are you today? We have a very exciting guest. His name is Peter Roth. He's co-founder of the Heart River Center. And when I had brain cancer back in 2008, which I've talked a lot about on the show, I ended up meeting Mr. Roth because he is an intuitive healer. And whatever you feel about natural healing or organic healing or any of that stuff, or using different tools like crystals or things like that, it doesn't matter. Peter gave me so much love and support. And even though all of my doctors were saying, you're going to die, Andrew, in a year, maybe a year and a half, something like that, Peter Roth was there for me. I would go up and do weekly sessions with him, sometimes more often. And he was just such a support and told me that I was going to be all right. And he came to the hospital when I had brain cancer. When I had brain cancer, but when I think it was my second surgery. And we talk about this in this discussion. And Peter also gets into, which was really nice of him, got to meet my family, and he stood by my hospital bed. It was a lot of people, a lot of my friends did. So I really appreciate that too. And anyway, Peter does this technique called human design, which is very interesting, and it's connected to astrology and I Ching, and we get into that in this conversation. I would say it's a slow burn on this one, but listen to your elders, and thank you so much for watching my show. I really appreciate it. Have a great day or night or morning whenever you're checking this out. It's interesting because I met you and you did my human design, and then I started to have a great understanding of my agreement here. I feel like physically, I'm O negative. I'm kind of like the opposite. Like, my body can be like beat up and, trash, and I can get back up to fight.
No, that's O's. That's O. O's are designed to be very strong, hardy people.
Like, have brain surgeries and just be like, it's all right.
Right. Hardiness. And I love that. So I was talking with this friend who's 86, and he's out running, and he was the top runner last year. And I said to him, I said, you just have incredible genes. You're designed to be strong all your life and without breaking down. And he agreed. And that's opposite from me. But I used to be fast. And I remember one time I ran in a race in Central Park with him, and I could keep up with him.
Wow.
And now he can run circles around me, and he's 86.
That is just, it's so inspiring. My neighbor who just turned 96 yesterday, I went around to all her friends in the neighborhood and stuff, and got these little birthday videos and made her a montage.
Oh, good.
And one of her friends was born in 1930. Another one was born in 1923, I think. Another one was born in 1929. And the other one was 1930 something. And it's amazing to engage with people who have been in existence physically for that amount of time. I cried filming all of them. Let's put it that way.
Well, there used to be a woman who would be a power walker in Central Park. And I got friendly with her because she'd be out there every day, rain or shine, snow, whatever. She would do a 6-mile loop. And she was in her 90s.
Wow. That's amazing. God bless her. God bless her, man.
And one day I came across her sitting on a park bench. And her name was Gwen. I said, so Gwen, how you doing? She said, I'm down to 3 miles a day. You can only do 3 miles a day. I said, why did you cut it back? She said, because I'm going to be 100 in March.
God, that is so just, and it's that spirit that that of of folks that have that spirit at that time in their life, you know, age, whatever, that is just keeps me going, to be honest.
Good, because yeah, but that says a lot for you that you are inspired by that kind of thing. You know, a
I
lot of people will just think she's crazy and they don't want anything to do with that kind of stuff.
I know I posted one of the videos of this woman born in 1930, and people are like, "What do you live like an old folks home?" Ha ha ha. I was like, "Hey, don't respect, you know, disrespect our elders like that. That is not nice, you know."
Well, my mother-in-law was born, and she's alive, and she was born in 1930, and she's doing great mentally. Physically, she gets around, she still drives everywhere. She's been out a lot during the virus, um, going to restaurants and all that.
Oh, geez.
And she's very brave. She said, you know, her attitude is, at my age, I'm not going to let life hold me back. I'm not going to do that. The window is too small. I'm going to take advantage of every day that I have, and believing in her health enough to do that. And then there's a woman who is a client of mine, an active client of mine, and she was born in 1929.
Wow.
And she, you know, my father was born in 1909, and my mother was born in 1917. But they're long gone. But my father's younger brother was born in 1911, and he only died a few years ago. He was 100, I think 101 when he died.
You know what's interesting is I was talking to my neighbor who, but just so everybody knows, I'm intentionally not saying her name because people have tried to take advantage of her.
Good.
And which anyway, and I was asking her, I mean, you went through the Great Depression, World War II, her husband served and saw action, Vietnam War, Martin Luther King, you know, all of everything. And I said, how does this year, what we're going through with the pandemic and politics and the Black Lives Matter protests, how does this compare? She goes, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, of course.
Well, you say that, but as many times as on news articles and things where I tell that same story, people are like, no way. And I'm like, way, like this is worse than the Great Depression.
Well,
like,
not only that, but it's also creating a horrible future for many people who aren't making it. And there'll be many more deaths from suicide, depression, and violence because of this. And also my brother, who's one of the leading experts on vitamin D, and his book will be out by the spring anyway, is focusing no longer on using D to fight off the virus, even though it's better than any vaccine. But he's now using it to strengthen the immune system to fight all of the immune, what is it, the kind of diseases you get, autoimmune diseases from because of the troubles we're going through now, and the after effects of people who've had the virus, and all kinds of trouble that our immune systems are shut down. And we don't even know. I mean, maybe this vaccine is going to be shutting down immune systems in people. Even though it fights the vaccine, it might not fight, it might make us vulnerable to fight anything else.
Fight the virus or the vaccine. Sorry.
I mean, the virus.
Yeah.
The vaccine might fight the virus, but it might make us vulnerable to all other diseases.
Well, let's go through that, Peter. I feel like we're kind of into something here. That one of the reasons that I sought you out, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. And I'm here, I'm talking with my dear friend, Peter Roth, who is an intuitive healer. And I call him, at this point in my life, I call him Uncle Peter, because I see him as family. And when I was going through terminal brain cancer in 2008, a friend of mine recommended I go see Peter because he has this greater understanding and an amazingly huge toolbox of universal gifts for healing. And we were just discussing, we're in December 2020, so we were just discussing the vaccine and the virus. And one of the things that you told me, Peter, early on, I said, should I do chemo and radiation? And you said that that would kill me, not the cancer. And I think that's what you said. I have a recording of it.
Okay.
And
I don't like to tell people what to do. I like to guide people as to what might be best for them, and then they can choose what to do. You could have also ignored me.
Yeah, but I could have, you're right. But I feel like the universe put us together in that room in your house for this reason, because I needed to hear what you had to say. And
I was
listened.
confident in you.
Yeah.
I believed in you totally.
Thank you. But my point being that the vaccine may fight the virus, COVID-19, but it also may compromise our immune systems in the way that chemotherapy can, or radiation, or a myriad of other pharmaceuticals.
This is an experiment, because the vaccines, this isn't your normal vaccine. These vaccines, they're based on our genes, on RNA, and they affect us at that genetic level. And we don't know enough about them. We might know that they will fight off this virus, but we don't know what they might do to our systems genetically. It's like, GMO foods that many of us are frightened by, and feel that it's also an experiment with introducing things to us that are artificial, that we don't know how the body deals with that.
They don't always vibrationally match the person or the energy of the humans in general. GMO foods and or pesticides and or, I mean, case in point, when my mother was coming up, sugar was apparently good for you. So they would put white sugar on their cereal, on their toast. They'd have cake and, processed foods. And now my mom has severe dementia, and who knows if it was that diet. So point being, who knows in 20, 30, 40 years, if you had the virus, what will that mean to you when you're 70 or 80 or what, right?
You mean the vaccine?
Both. Because I know a gentleman that works at a neuro bio lab in Sacramento, who says they're starting to think that the virus will attach itself to your neural pathways and maybe come back later. They don't know.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, but the industry wants us to be as frightened as possible, so we'll be as dependent as possible.
Good job.
Drugs.
Good job with that, right?
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah.
And so we need to understand how to take care of ourselves as purely as possible, and not subject ourselves to anything that the pharmaceutical industry throws at us because we're frightened. And be smarter about it. It doesn't mean to ignore what's frightening you because it's frightening you. It just means use that purpose to learn how to do a better job in your life, so that you don't need to be frightened. And
that sounds, Peter, that sounds a tiny bit pompous. What do you mean you need to learn to do a better job in your
in other
life?
words, what is it that the government is not, or the authorities are not telling us? They're not telling us that if we're healthier, we might avoid being sick. And they're not telling us about the nutrients, the supplements that actually kill off this virus, because they say there's no evidence that it does. Well, there's plenty of evidence that it does, but not boxed evidence. In other words, because this is a new virus, there haven't been almost any double-blind studies to fight it. So because there haven't been double-blind studies, the authorities can easily say everything is unproven and therefore it's unworthy, and therefore you just have to go with what they're telling us, like social distance, masks, and wash your hands. And basically, that's how they're trying to protect us. But that's only destroying our social
infrastructure,
our weave, our social weave.
Yeah, weave.
And it's really important to understand that they're not teaching us how to take better care of ourselves otherwise. And the healthier lifestyles that they should be teaching us, they can't, because it competes with the junk food industry.
Right.
And with the drug industry. So the experts, like for instance, there's a guy who's one of the top experts in the world on vitamin C. He does these videos that are being censored and taken off the internet.
Right.
Because you're not allowed to believe that vitamin C is good for you until there are double-blind studies for every little nuance of what vitamin C can do.
And yet, here, take this vaccine that we haven't done our double-blind studies on yet, right?
Right, because we're all so frightened that we're going to buy into that. And they make money on it. They don't make money on vitamin C or vitamin D. And it turns out D is even much more powerful than C. And vitamin D is the commander of the immune system. It really is the leading general, or the way that our immune system is protected and utilized is because of vitamin D, particularly. And then you think of, well, that makes sense, because we're supposed to be sunshine people. We're supposed to, right. Humanity is supposed to live in the sun, and therefore we're designed for the sun to heal us. And actually, many decades ago, there were solariums that you'd go to if you were diseased and sit in the sun all day and get healthy. And they were very successful. But the drug industry wasn't happy about them, so they're gone. But the idea of vitamin D from the sun is something that didn't have good science behind it for a long time. And even now, so much of the research on vitamin D wasn't accurate, because you know that when we have our blood tested for vitamin D, it's tested for something called 25-OHD.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I was going to interject when I was going through brain. I worked with Dr. Jean Wallace from Nutritional Solutions. She was sort of the yin to your yang. So she was doing all the blood work and giving me supplements to take, and, very regimented kind of health regime. And I remember taking that vitamin D test. She goes, "Oh my God, your vitamin D levels are so low." I was on 10,000 IUs at one point a day.
And they were low.
They were very low.
You know why? Because your body was just using it up so powerfully that you needed a lot more than 10,000 to keep having it.
It might have been 20,000. I just don't want to
No, it doesn't matter.
Stuff. Right.
What it is that, and this is the whole idea, is that our blood is being tested not for vitamin D. It's being tested for something called 25-OHD. That's what your liver converts vitamin D into in order to protect your bones. But most of the vitamin D is freed to use in your immune system, and all your cells have vitamin D receptors, not vitamin 25-OHD receptors, because it's only your bones that need the 25-OHD. But that's what we're being tested for. There's no blood test for vitamin D. Now, 25-OHD is made by the liver, and it lasts a long time in our bodies. It can last up to 3 weeks. So a lot of the testing they've done over the years is to say, well, you have all this 25-OHD in your body, therefore you have lots of vitamin D in your system. So we're going to measure how the vitamin D is helping you. And they say, oh, look, it doesn't help you at all except for your bones. So therefore vitamin D is worthless except for your bones. And so a lot of the research is based on that. Now, what we found out recently, scientifically, is that vitamin D actually has a half-life of 12 to 24 hours. So a lot of the research was done with what's called bolus doses, which they give you, like 50,000 or 100,000 or 300,000 units at a time, and say, okay, that's enough to last you for 3 weeks. And we'll give you more after 3 weeks. And they don't realize that after a few days, it's gone.
It's gone. Wow.
And then they say, oh, it didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work because it disappeared. Because the reason it had such a fast half-life is that the body takes it up and uses it so rapidly because it needs it so much. That's why we need so much of it. And that's why you might have tested low, even though you were taking a lot.
Oh, no. I tested low before I started taking a lot.
Oh, okay. But even people who take a lot might test low because they need it so much. And some people who don't take much and test high their bodies might be all right doing without it, especially if it's summertime and you're out in the sun a lot. So we need to understand our body's craving for vitamin D and give it all it needs. And so people really, a minimum dosage people should have is 10,000 units a day. And that's scientifically shown to wake up over 1,000 genes in your body that needed to be.
Maybe when the time comes and I publish this episode, we can put a link or two to some articles where scientists talk about vitamin D.
Well, my brother's book will hopefully be out.
Yeah, your twin brother, his name is, what's it, Paul?
Alan Roth.
Alan, right, I forgot.
Yeah, we don't know the title for the book yet, but he's almost done with it. And it's very, very scientific, extremely detailed, more than his publisher even wanted.
Right, I can't wait to read it. Peter, I wanted to read something, a quote I got off your website, if you don't mind, so that I could then pursue a question. I love to bring people out of pain, and I'm excited the many tools I have to do it. This is why I teach. It's great to have an arsenal, and I want everyone to have one as well. Of course, the strongest tool we have is our heart. To strengthen this strengthens all. And I 100% believe strengthening your heart and your love for well, I want to say yourself, because I had this great conversation with Nikki Hamid about 2 weeks ago. And what you say, you have a lot of tools in your toolbox, paraphrasing, and two of those tools, one is human design, which you did for me when I was going through brain cancer, and also the cards. And I wondered if you'd be willing to, you can use my human design as an example, or if you just want to talk about what human design is, or the cards, or however you want to go about it.
But I first want to talk about what you just read of that quote from me about the heart, because when you were going through your brain cancer trouble, there are many ways to go through it.
It was no trouble. I'm kidding.
No, I'm not talking about whether it was trouble or not. It's how you hold it. Right. And it's a matter of heart. It's all about heart. And you had the heart for it. there are people who contract any kind of disease who don't have the heart for it, and they're a mess. And they're often their diseases win against them because their hearts aren't strong enough to hold it. And so a lot of pain is our perception of it because of whether we're in oneness with ourselves or not. And I think it's really important for people to understand that difference of how we suffer or not. What kind of sufferers are we? And you were a champion, and I knew that right away. And the only way you can be a champion is if your heart is in the right place. And we can look at that for anything in life, for all of our career opportunities, interests, work, relationships, families. How are we holding our oneness of ourselves to believe in ourselves enough in our wholeness from our oneness, our wholeness, to not suffer? There's always problems. We're always going to step in the next hole, but how much do we have to suffer it? And I'm thinking of music and how music is a language of a challenge of truth and form, and how it also brings us to harmonic levels within ourselves, and we strive for that. But that's why instruments always have to be tuned, etc., because we want the wholeness from it. So we want that wholeness from ourselves, and produce life like you produce music in a way that expands us and challenges us. But we rise above it because we believe in it and we believe in ourselves.
Peter, what is it? One of the qualms and conundrums I have with this type of language is that we assume everybody knows what we mean. And when you say people need to become one with themselves, could you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
Well, that's why we can talk about the heart itself and the wholeness of harmony in our energies. The heart is where we hold love, self-love, and love for others, and universal love. And it's the ability of that language of love that, when we can experience it, when we have loving moments in our lives with, it could be just family, but also in the world, when things happen that bring us all together, that tragedy happens and we come together. And that's an example of wholeness and oneness, is coming together. So we can do that within ourselves. How do we bring ourselves together? And sometimes it's tragedy that does that, but you need to have the glue within yourself of love that holds it together, rather than how many people can't and fall apart from challenge. And so, you're a role model, and that's what I love about what you are here for in this life, is to help people find that truth of what's true, what is real truth. And real truth is wholeness. Real truth is harmony. Real truth. That's why music, when there's real truth, it sends you. You just are in another space.
You go on this journey with the music, right? It's
right.
Just so amazing. First of all, okay, you're saying such nice things about me, and I really appreciate that. But I want everybody to know, it's not, I did not expect those kind of comments, but I'm very grateful. But one of the things that you said to me, Peter, in one of our first, when I was doing consultations at your house in your office, you said, "Oh, you need to learn how to love yourself." I was like, "What? Like, what does that even mean?" And this is 12 years ago. So,
But that's why the cancer was there in the first place, is that it was a glitch.
hmm.
And so we had to look at all the ways that you had conditioned yourself in life, or been conditioned in life, to struggle, and and our bodies. Disease is really a language, a healing language, to show us what's not working, and so we needed to find out in your life what would bring on, this disease. And we looked at that. We looked at, all kinds of things that were in your past, and and your human design. At that point, we weren't looking at cards, but we looked at your human design, and could see, where the struggles were. And also, so on the conditioning level of your life and your family and your loves in your life and who you need to be, and have little glitches about that. And so the body then, in order to protect you, it really thinks it's helping you by creating these diseases. Cancer is often considered just a way that the body thinks it's fixing itself, but somehow it's not smart enough. It often is. And 100 years ago, people didn't die of cancer so much. Why not? Because cancers would come and go without us knowing about it. And some of them, would kill us, but for the most part, they would just do their job and then wait for us to make ourselves better somehow, and the cancer would disappear.
I two comments. One is, I would love for you to talk about what human design is, because you keep referring to it in the third person as if everybody understands what human design is. If you don't want to,
no, I'd be happy to. I know. Sometimes people get thrown off about, it's an artificial scientific look. It uses the energies, precise energies of the planets, of our birth data, and so it's kind of like astrology. And I hope our audience believes in astrology, because it's proven itself, and that's why there are hundreds of thousands of astrologers in the world, because they believe in it, and their clients too. But human design, as my wife, who's an astrologer, says, is astrology on steroids. And that's because it knows where the planets are in the sky at the moment of birth. And instead of having an astrology chart with houses and signs around it, and what your signs are and all that, it has the hexagrams of the Chinese I Ching around the sky. And who can imagine that? And a lot of people have heard of the I Ching but don't know much about it. And the I Ching is an ancient Chinese book of wisdom, actually, where the Chinese have broken down life into 64 parts. And then they've depicted each of those parts with 6 horizontal lines, one on top of each other. And any of the lines can be solid or broken. That's yang or yin. And so if you have 6 lines, and each line can be a yin or yang line, broken or solid, then you can have 64 varieties. And if the extremes are yin and yang, all what you have in between are all the variations that yin and yang create life in various juxtapositions. So the 64 hexagrams are 64 different concepts of life. And those different concepts of life surround the sky. And when we know where your planets are at the moment of birth, we know which concepts of life, in other words, which ways that your psyche experiences life from that. And also human design uses another date, 88 and a half days before you were born, which is the unconscious half of you that clicked in at that time, and where the planets were then. So it has two sets of planets, and so it has a lot of information. And not only does it know how to align the planets with the hexagrams, that's the genius of the system. It knows where the hexagrams are around the sky, but it also knows actually which line of each hexagram you're born into. So it's a subset of that concept. So, and we only get 26 different traits from the planets, and there's also a north node and south node. It's something, it's part of it. And so we have 26 different traits that you're born into of the whole I Ching. And so you, because you're born November 2nd, and we know, exactly the moment of birth and the time of birth, then we go back 80 and a half days and know about the unconscious half of you, and then put it all together. And so it comes together in a chart that we see columns of these numbers and the planets, but we also, it gets transposed into a chakra template. And in other words, we have chakras. In this system, it's a 9-center chakra system. And each of the hexagrams are placed permanently in different chakras according to how they're.
Can you share a screenshot of
I
what
can,
this
if you
looks
can, if I can have that ability.
Yeah, why don't you take your
You
time?
have to enable it.
I have to do what?
You have to enable it.
You should have control. I've done it before.
It says host disabled participant screen share.
So where do I change that? Do you know?
I don't know. Maybe go to screen share in yours, or I don't know. But I'd love to bring it up.
Share my screen. Where the heck is that? Oh, here we go. Hold on. Oh no, it's just for me.
Yeah, but it might give you a choice to allow someone else to share their screen.
Yeah, fair enough.
And we'll try it. Because you have an unusual chart.
Worst case scenario, you look at it and I throw it in when I edit. You know what I mean?
All right. So I'm looking at it now. And there are 9 centers. And usually, for most people, some centers are colored in and some centers are blank. Those chakras are blank. And that means they're undefined. And so we're striving in our lives to define different parts of us that aren't working as comfortably as other parts. But your chakras, they're all colored in. And I've done thousands of chart readings for people, and maybe of the thousands of chart readings I've seen, maybe 5 or 6 that are all colored in. That's how very rare you are.
I think you said Deborah, your wife, had similar, right?
No, she just has the channels between the mind and the throat all colored in, and she's also one of very few people who have that, because there are channels between each of the chakras that are kicked out by the hexagrams, and they help us read what's going on in the system. So you have all of them colored in, but then there are ways that they don't all speak to each other, and that's your glitch. In other words, you have a triple split definition, which means that there are 3 different ways that your chakras have a gap in them between all of them. And so you're missing like the 40th hexagram, the 22nd, the 36th, the 23rd, and the 56 hexagrams. If you had any of those, you would feel more whole. And it creates some anxiety, some need to get your ducks in order that people with triple split definitions struggle with. You know, you're always feeling like something still needs to get fixed in order to help you feel more comfortable. It might be that, you know, you need to tune your instrument better, you know, get a fresh reed. I don't know.
Interesting. Reed, you're talking about a saxophone reed? Check it
Yeah,
out.
of course.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, there's always something that's missing, something that you feel like you could do a better job with. And some of us, I also have a split in my chart that drives me kind of nuts. But many people have charts that have what's called single definition, and they don't have these Achilles heels that you and I have, that we're struggling to make ourselves more whole.
I guess it's when you did my human design and we were sitting down again in your home office there, and you were Peter does consultations, everybody, and I would highly recommend, if you have the need for some healing or would like to talk with Peter, I highly recommend either you do it on the phone as well, right, Peter?
Yeah, I do on the phone. I do a lot of Zoom work too.
Okay. And that you can find on his website, heartrivercenter.org. I will put that link below for anybody who wants to learn more about Peter's work. But the one thing that I remember is you doing my human design, and we were sitting down maybe for an hour, maybe it was 2 hours, I don't know, something like this. And you were going through my chart and you said, "Oh, yeah, you'll be fine." I said, "What?" You said, "Yeah, you'll be fine from this brain cancer thing. You chose this as this is just part of your journey." Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I don't know the exact words, but
Yeah, I don't know
I
the exact
know
words either.
the truth of that.
And but here's what I want to say to everybody is that Peter was one of maybe 4 people who thought I was going to be okay. I mean, my own family, my sister was planning my funeral. My friends were like, "All right, Andrew's going to be gone in 10, 9, right?" And you were one of the few people who were like, "Yeah, you're going to be okay. You just have to learn how to love yourself and stop resenting your father." That was another thing you talked about. And I worked really hard, obviously, because I'm here. So I'll pat myself on the back a little bit. But without you, I don't know where I would have ended up, to be honest. I don't know.
Wow, I'm so happy to be a part of your success. That's great. I want to read something to you because your human design also has a cross to bear.
Okay.
As we all have. And there are 194 different crosses to bear in human design. So many of us have different kinds of crosses to bear. And I can read from, there's a book that was published that some guy interpreted. There are a number of books that have interpretations of these crosses to bear. And this is, I just want to read a little bit of this about you. Your life theme is to test all the limits of experience in this world, and then to find an inner stillness for reflection that supports your process of renewal. At times, you may not know why you are propelled into certain experiences or denied access to others, only to find much later how they all bring meaning to your life. That's why you have this podcast too, to bring as much together as you know how, because you're seeking truth. Be aware that trying to guide your life with your mind will always lead to feeling that real opportunities and solutions elude you. I guess that's why you've turned to music. Despite your wonderful rationalizations, part of you knows that life is a mystery that will consistently outreach your mental comprehension, which is why you interview others.
Right.
Well, it's that, it's like you're not the guy that has all the truth. You know that you have to find it in others. This is a lifetime that affords the opportunity to assimilate some profound truths. And you might have recollections of times, places, and experiences locked deep in your memories that continuously shape your present life. So, all right, so that's just part of what is said about you that makes sense to me. And there are, as I said, there are other books that tackle the crosses we bear in human design have to do with the roles we play. And so we're all playing different roles. Mine has to do with survival. So I have a cross that just tries to keep things going, that's why I'm a healer. My wife has a cross of service, and she's always finding ways to serve others, mostly groups. And so, but there are many, 194 different crosses. But that's because human design has hundreds of different traits that it shows us about ourselves that we don't know until we know we're living it. We can't help but live it, but it's great to have the language about it. And that's what I tell people. This is a language about us that we haven't heard before, but it's true to who we are.
I'm having a young astrologer on in about a week and a half. This boy Elias from Seattle. I'm very curious. He has an astrology podcast that he does, and I'm gonna proposition him with human design because he's young and he's wants fresh and he wants to understand. So I'll be very curious to hear his take on human design if he feels compelled to work with it or the cards. But when you're thrust into a world of disease and then you walk into another room and this amazing person in Peter Roth, and I had a few other people, but there wasn't many that were positive. And they say, okay, well, do human design, and that'll tell you what's going on. People have some, they're like, this is fucking bullshit, right? I mean,
yeah, a lot of people don't believe in anything different.
So I guess what I'm saying is two things. One is I understand that challenge. And in my human design, I sometimes work in the trenches and I help pull people out of the trenches because they're down there and they're sick or they want help. But maybe I'm not the one that lays my hands on them and heals them, but I can carry them over here.
That's healing.
Sure, fair enough. I'm just trying to give you credit. And so if I have one client who is so challenging, I mean, she just does not, what's the universe? What's source? There is no God. What do you mean healing? I should be taking antibiotics, not talking to you, that kind of stuff. I'm sure you've ran into that kind of thing as well, right?
Sure, and I call it karma. Are people willing to believe in greater truths or not? And we can't force them to do it. We can lead them to it, but they then have to agree. And many don't. And that's just where their souls are at and where they need to be.
Yeah, I guess it's the analogy I've been using is, let's say we're in a building or some kind of structure where there's a bunch of rooms and there's kind of somebody peeking in the door, like of the human design door or the love, light, and peace door, or just the heart, the chakra door, or your auric field, or maybe they want to hear about aliens and ETs, or
Great.
And, right? I know, but I'm kind of like the guy with the towel. What is that person called? And you seat them at the table. Not the butler. So I'm like, it's okay. You can come in, It's all right. Chakras aren't scary. Auric fields are not scary. Human design is not scary. And you don't even have to believe it. But if you don't come in the room and have a discussion and learn about it, you can't just say no. Your response, is that crazy? I mean, if it's somebody's karma and they're not.
You put it out there. You and I are putting it out there. We're leading people to drink of the waters that we know. And a lot of people don't have a taste for it. And, and we can try harder and harder and harder. But where there's the right karma for it, for us to have actually be able to influence people, all the better. But then there are people who we're not supposed to influence, who actually need to struggle more with their own, I call it limitations, because they're not open to new ideas. And they don't have to agree. Everybody doesn't have to agree with everyone else, because it's a huge universe. But our goal is to find as much harmony and agreement as we can, but not to become disturbed by it. Just allow life to unfold the way it needs to, and we do our best.
That's all we can do. What are we looking at? That's my human design or somebody else's, or?
This is yours.
Oh, interesting. I haven't looked at this in a while.
And November 2nd, 1965. And
I think you can mouse over and point at things if you want to talk about
yeah,
them.
I can talk about things. But also, I should actually get a book that helps look at it too, so I can refer to different challenges of yours and other things in here that
I have no challenges. Come on, I'm perfect.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry. How could I forget that? Interesting. We're recording now?
Yes.
Good. So I'm looking at the south node here on the conscious side. All the black is conscious, the red is unconscious. And these are the hexagram numbers, and then the small numbers are the lines of each hexagram. And then there are triangles, which are arrows pointed up and down, that are either detriments or exaltations. So there's an awful lot of information in these columns here. And these symbols are different planets. And then we have the south node and the north node. And then in the middle, it's a chakra template. And we have the seventh on top, the sixth chakra underneath it, the green, then the throat chakra. And then on the bottom right is the solar plexus chakra, which is all about feelings. And on the left side is the spleen chakra, which is it's the survival chakra. It's your fears for survival. And of course, the throat is expression. The green is the mundane mind, and the gold up on top is the higher mind that deals with abstract reality. Then these two in the middle, I call both of them together, I call the heart chakra, because the middle one is more about your identity, which is there's no reason why that's not the heart chakra. And then the little red triangle is about willpower and the ego. And then the red square is the generator motor. So you're a generator. It's your type. It's a manifesting generator, actually.
Right.
And then on the bottom is the initiator chakra, the first chakra, and the root chakra. And that's the pressure to initiate, to make things happen. And right there, just to say something about that, is that the 19th hexagram is sitting in there. It's red, it's unconscious, but it has to do with teamwork. It has to do with wanting to play in a band or have your own band, and having guests on your radio podcast. And it's really initiating with others. You bring others into your life, and so your pressure to initiate has to do with always involving others.
It's so interesting. I had forgotten about a lot of this, and for whatever reason, I didn't think it would be appropriate to talk about my personal human design. But since you seem as though it's okay, and I trust your intuition, I had a Danish student ask me. He goes, I know you have a big band, and my big band is anywhere from 13 to 15 people. And he goes, I'm trying to get a big band together in Denmark. He goes, how did you organize rehearsals and get people for shows? And I was like, I don't know. And then I went back and I looked up my big band DNA orchestra, whatever, on mail. And for one show, I had sent 193 emails.
Oh my God.
For one show. But for me, I literally had to look at it to remember the work that I had put in, because for me, it was just, hey, I'm just engaging or initiating people.
Right, because that's the way you know how to initiate. It's natural for you to be that kind of person. And other people who don't have the 19th gate, they don't necessarily think of others the way you do.
Oh, I wish you would tell my friends. I love them, but I'm learning that, and I don't know if this is in my human design, but you can tell us, is I can be very, very volatile, or mean, I guess is another word. It just like comes out. And so there's another aspect in my human design that talks about my flying off into outer space and yelling at people.
Well, one of the issues here is that your mind isn't connected to your throat. So, you have the 11 is having a lot of ideas. The 43 is having insight, and it doesn't connect to your expression that easily. So it can drive you to be upset that you don't always think you're getting your mind across to others. And so it's one of those are two gaps in your chart that I said earlier have to do with being Achilles heels in our lives. So you're always feeling like you need to make up for something that's missing in terms of communicating. And so that can drive you to that.
Yeah, well, it may have cost me a few friendships, but these people seem to be coming back. And after understanding that we all have our limitations. At one point, Peter, you also said to me, and this was regarding my father, but in general, you said, Andrew, we're all just doing the best we can here. If you start judging people, that they're not good enough, or that you don't like them, or they're, abandoning you or whatever. I mean, we're all just doing the best we can. Right. I mean, that's
right. But we're allowed to make our own choices of who we want to be the best we can with. And there are a lot of people who don't meet our needs, and we don't meet theirs. And so we really can choose to not associate with people who don't align with us, unless there's some karmic need to struggle through that with people, and your souls have agreed to be in this life to confront each other.
My understanding, and I'm very happy to be corrected, is that, and for everybody's sake and my own sake, I'll just stick with the whole brain cancer thing because it's easy to refer to. All the doctors, the surgeon that messed up one of my brain surgeries, you and my nutritionist, Dr. Wallace, and all of these people who were challenging me that I wasn't facing death and I needed to get real. I felt like I had a contract with all of them. Like everybody was there, and they were on the film contract or whatever the agreement. And once I started to understand that via working with you, that, Dr. Alterman, I shouldn't say names, one of the brain surgeons who did a bad job, you're like, yeah, but you made a deal with them, and that you needed to have that experience. And it really changes the way we see especially our problems, right? People love to focus on the negative.
Yeah, we have to remember that everything is in divine order. We just don't know what the order is supposed to mean. And so we're challenged by it. And our fight to survive, our struggle in this world is what we're here for. Because we're here to find more answers, to find more light, to create more wholeness through being challenged.
Are you familiar with Dolores Cannon, her
Sure.
work? And one of the things that she says, rest in peace, Dolores has passed on, is that it's like,
He was even older than me.
I didn't say that, you did.
I'm proud of my age.
Good for you. But she says it'd be like having the answers to the test before you took it. And
Right,
we're here, right? I like that.
Right, so we would be second guessing ourselves all the time because we would know better, and not learning what we need to learn. So we come here almost, it's, it looks like a blank slate, but it's really the huge amount of plans that have gone into our soul journey that we're here to confront, different issues, different people, different challenges in our life that our souls agreed to before we even got here.
I'm doing my best to get Dolores's daughter Julia on the show. Wow. And is looking, well, we were walking down the street in Manhattan. I think it was West 6th Street, maybe somewhere over there, West 4th, somewhere. And on a light post, a street lamp, it said, "Who is Dolores Cannon?" I'm like, no way. Like, who would, first of all, not a lot of people know about Dolores's work. Second of all, who would take the time to like graffiti that on a pole in Manhattan, right?
It doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but maybe she was, contacting somebody. I don't know. It was after she had passed. It was just very strange.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of strangeness that goes on interdimensionally. And I love to see all of that at work, see the universe, other dimensions communicating with us. And I intuitively, I can do that myself. I can go into past lifetimes and all kinds of places in the universe that most people can't experience.
It is that ability that you have to tap into past lives or other dimensions, and you said other people don't have that ability, since it's not technically something that we learn, by getting a doctorate or whatever. Like, really? So not every human has the skill to visit themselves from the past or to visit themselves in an alternate reality or another dimension?
We all do, but we don't all facilitate it. In other words, humans are designed to be multidimensional, but we're not bred that, we're not conditioned to be open to that. So most of it gets shut down, and it's just life does that. Like, for instance, young children up till 5 years old are more apt to be able to identify their past lifetimes than once after they're 5 years old.
Sorry.
It's interesting.
Did I tell you that story about that boy in Seattle? So I was at my brother's house. I was visiting my family in Seattle. I was on the deck having a beer with a friend of mine. And this little boy up in a tree goes, "Hey, you, what are you doing?" I said, "Me?" He goes, "Yeah, both of you. What are you doing?" So we walk over. He's maybe 12, 15 feet up in a tree. And I said, "We're just talking. We're friends having a beer." He goes, "Well, I'm 8 and I'm in a tree." And I said, "All right, good for you." He goes, I can see things in people. I said, you know, I'm kind of pandering to him, like, oh, really, young man? He goes, yeah, I see something in your right brain, like it's kind of like maybe a plate or something that's like a patch. He called it a patch. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, something. And I said, well, I had brain surgery. He goes, yeah, that's what it is, but you're okay now. And then he goes, oh my God. He points to the roof of my brother's house and says, there's an angel on your brother's roof. He called him Tom. And we look over and he goes, oh, no, she's gone. We're like, okay. And then we turn around and he's got, the boy is disappeared, like just disappeared.
It's amazing. I love stories like that.
My friend Raymond and I sat there for another hour going, that was so cool.
Of course. Of course.
And
I wish we could have those experiences all the time.
But I think that's my long way around was that's what you were saying is when we're, well, he was 8, but you know, we start to get conditioned or programmed, whatever term you want to use, to not understand the non-physical reality that's around us. That was my point of telling the story, which I can always edit out if it's too long. But I love that story, and I love that boy. I don't remember. I think he called himself Gabriel or something like that, or you know, Archangel Michael or something. I don't. I really don't. I don't remember. But it was just one of those random, and there is no random in my opinion, magic moments where it was telling me and my friend, who's about half my age, that, you know, don't stop being open. Don't stop allowing yourself to understand that there are angels flying around, you know, or fairies, and there are ways we can help each other by saying, hey, you look sick, can I help you? Or, you know, you look like you need a hug, can I hug you? Or, you know, whatever it is.
Good. So
do you want to transition into, we've had the human design up for this whole time, so.
Well, yeah, we have, and you know, I mean, there's a lot I could talk about on and on. Sessions when I do private readings for people, they can last, you know, the minimum is 2 hours, and sometimes 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on how deep people want me to go, because there's that much in it that is amazing. So I'm going to look at the strengths of this that I really like. And the number one here comes out of your identity, and that's the trait of being creative. And it's red, so it's unconscious, so you just can't help it. You're just a creative person. And what's interesting is it connects to the 15 to the 5, this little channel down here. And that's a channel that has to do with being able to experience energy flow, being able to find the flow of life. There's a person this is a very prominent part of his chart, is the Dalai Lama. So it's that people who have this are people who really know how to get into a groove about reality, about what life is, and understand it at that deeper level. And so when you combine that with creativity, that's why you can be the musician. It's one of the reasons why you can be the musician you are, because it really flows beautifully. Let's see, the very top, the mind is very active. There's pressure of the clarity of the abstract. You're always seeking to understand deep things, and that's very powerful. Let's see, you have this channel, the 26 to the 44 here. It's conscious, and that's the entrepreneur. So that allows you to actually live a very a life where you're in your own rhythms, you're in your own time schedule, your own letting life flow the way you need to for work. That's what an entrepreneur does. They They don't punch clocks. They know that you can't create your own business in life if you're stuck in a box. So the 26 to the 44 is being able to live outside of a box, really being also free floating.
No, it's interesting because my family, I mean, all of my family cracks up because they can pretty much call or text me at any given moment, even at like 5 a.m. or at midnight or at noon, and even on the same day, and they're like, "You're up?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just working on music, or I'm
Right.
editing this video, or just."
And that's what entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
Right. So you're designed to be that way naturally.
I mean, as a younger man, it felt awkward because my mom was like, "You need to get up at 7 and you need to go to bed by 10." And I just did not thrive in that environment. So once I was able to understand that I could just, have the life that I wanted to have and create when I felt like creating, and,
Yeah.
watching TV when I wanted to watch TV, it was very freeing for a guy like me. So,
Right. And so this little red triangle is the ego, willpower, and it works that way. In other words, you have a strong ego from this being defined to believe in yourself and to trust yourself. When the ego is undefined, and most of us are like that, I'm like that, we wonder if we're being strong enough and good enough and reliable enough and all the things that a good, healthy ego can do. So, so you have that going for you.
I did. I think you're my 21st guest on the show, and I haven't published yet, but I've been talking about it on social media. And this 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 friend of mine, Jeremiah Fox, who's also an entrepreneur, in fact, has a show called the Entrepreneurial Web, and owns several businesses, sent me a message saying, "You're killing it with your podcast." I was like, "I haven't even published yet." He goes, No, just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job." I was like, "Okay." I mean, it was just, it was really nice. Let's put it that way, to give the
Yeah, right.
encouragement. But it's also, maybe there's an aspect in the human design that describes, yes, I have an ego. Yes, I know that doing this podcast is right. But then also there's self-doubt and like, well, should I publish this? Is this interesting? Am I going to finish editing? And, how should I publish it?
Well, that's this gap here, the 40th, that's missing, connecting to the 40. If the 40 could hit the 37 here, you see the two, then your feelings, which is the solar plexus chakra, would connect better with your ego, and you would feel that you could handle responsibility better. So what you're talking about is this Achilles heel of the 40th, thinking you need to be more responsible. And but it's an illusion. You can be the most responsible person in the world. If you have this gap, you're going to feel like you can do better. And then, I want to come to the cards, because the cards really reflect that too. Because you're born to be a 5 of diamonds.
Okay.
And the 5 of diamonds is there's never enough. There's always more. There's always what's next.
That's so fucking perfect.
Well, everyone says that about their cards. Every time I tell somebody about their card, they say, "Oh, that's so perfect."
Yep. I could have done better. I could have done this. It could have been better. That always.
And it drives you to do better and be better.
Yeah. Sometimes it also shuts me down. So there's both. But
well, yeah, it can, if there's, some glitch that you have to overcome. But we all have those. So, it's just part of what drives us in life.
So the 5 of diamonds, and then can you quickly tell people, when you say the cards, what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, the 5 of diamonds is in the 52 card deck.
Mm-hmm.
And the diamond is life. It's how you're playing life. Whereas the clubs are just the mind, and heart is the heart. Spades actually cover all the suits. And but when it's life, you know, you're always striving to get more out of life. And that's the 5 of diamonds. I'm a 4 of clubs, which means my mind is always trying to figure things out foundationally. You know, what is the truth about this? What can we understand about that? But then we come back to human design, and we see here at the South Node, which is really a psychological emphasis in your life. What is it that drives you in life? At that, whatever that trait is. And you have common sense. So you're always trying to make common sense out of everything. That's why you're so good at these podcasts, because you're trying to, you know, milk the best of all of your guests. What common ground, what deeper understanding, what greater truth can we find? And you're born to play that way all your life. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
And so it's wonderful how all of these things come together. I always love to know people's cards when I do human design, because then I can understand how they play off of each other and with each other, and augment who we are, you know, explaining who we are.
Where does the compliments are a little overwhelming, but I'm so happy and grateful that you're being.
It's too bad I know you so well.
You got to be like my other friends who are like, and so anyway, Andrew, you're an asshole, and you know, I'm just kidding. No one's ever said that, but what you keep saying cards plural,
right? Well, I mean,
so are there other? Huh?
Yeah, we're all born into different cards, and you're born into the 5 of diamonds. I'm born into 4 of clubs. My wife is a 2 of clubs. My oldest son's a 6 of clubs. My younger son's a Queen of hearts. And we all are playing these cards, and it's amazing when you describe it to people. They go, "Oh my God, that's exactly right."
It's amazing, and how accurate. Because I remember at that dinner party we had, where you did everybody's cards, and everybody's draws were dropping on the floor. Like, oh my God, you just nailed. You know, describe me, and you know.
Right, exactly. I love to do it in groups where people know each other and go, "Wow, you really hit it on that."
and when you do these cards, do you pull just? Is there just one?
I don't pull. It's based on birth data.
And who connected the 5 of diamonds to November 2nd? Like, how does that
thousands
happen?
of years old. It's mathematical. There are mathematical formulas for this.
So Pythagoras, or
it's the way the deck is laid out and the year is laid out, and it's complicated. It doesn't just run right through the deck from, you know, even though there are certain months, like for instance, the beginning of January are all the spades in a row, and the end of December are all the hearts in a row. And we're coming up to actually December 25th, which is the 6 of hearts. And what's interesting, because people won't, you know, it will be long past Christmas when people hear this, but the 6 of hearts is questioning the quality of the heart. Are you playing your heart right? Are you behaving correctly or not? And you can imagine that that's Christmas Day, where that card is at play for everybody. That's why Christmas can be such a difficult experience.
It can be such a drag.
Yeah, because it's right out there. Is okay. Are you playing your cards right? If you are, and everybody's happy, that's great. But as soon as, you know, if anybody shows up in the family who's not playing, you know, that 6 of hearts well, it's going to be a real open sore. So it's a tough holiday for that reason.
It may be long after. That was one of the questions I had for you as an aside about my podcast. Like, am I actually going to follow through? And you said it'll be way after Christmas, but I can take that clip and put it up tomorrow if I wanted to, so people can hear it. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to help people deal with Christmas. Although it's scary, it says people, no wonder Christmas is such a questionable time in our families about, are we all playing that card correctly? Are we honorable through our hearts with each other?
My family, we used to play pinochle at Christmas. I don't know if anybody knows that card game anymore. Whatever.
I've heard of it.
Right. It's like bridge, but I think a little more complicated. And one year we were playing pinochle, the whole family, and it just got messy and we started yelling at each other and so on and so forth. And people got competitive. My mom was being my mom. My brother proclaimed, we are never playing cards on Christmas.
Yeah, because it challenges the Six of Hearts, right?
And the pinochle deck is a double deck, okay? So there's two of everything, and so it's very interesting. I don't know. I was just trying to see if there was a funny parallel to my family would play this really complicated card game.
Yeah, leading to trouble, because the Six of Hearts is looking for trouble. It's really, because when people are in relationships with someone with a Six of Hearts, I say, does your partner give you a tough time often, that you're not heartful enough, or you're not playing your heart right in life? And I always get a very strong response to that.
We've been looking at this human design. Do you want to talk more about that, or do you want to transition to a question or two that I have for you?
I'd love to hear your questions. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about human design all day, but I think we've there's so much more to tell you, but we've really looked at some deep stuff here that I think has been of value to everyone.
So one thing that we discussed and I don't have to publish this, but I do want to ask you, because we talked about it and you said you were okay with it. What if somebody looks at human design or the cards, or something else that you're talking about, and calls you delusional, and says, oh man, this guy's just crazy? Like, what do you say to somebody? I mean,
it doesn't bother me at all, because I'm not here to worry about somebody who doesn't know any better. If they don't know any better, they don't know any better. It's like, it's not. Years ago, I used to be upset by resistance and challenge it. But then my wife is such a friendly type of person that she taught me to be nicer and not be disturbed by people who used to disturb me. And so she's been a really good help for me to learn not to be upset by people who don't know any better. They don't know me. How could I even be threatened by their opinion? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, except for when I want to help somebody and I can see, again, with that analogy of they're kind of looking through the door, like, I wonder how Andrew healed, or I wonder if there's something Andrew knows that, I can connect them with you.
Well, this is your Five of Diamonds at work. You're always thinking there's something you can do. Always.
So I go to bat for you if one of my clients or friends calls you delusional, which they did, as I told you. So this is not I'm not throwing this question.
Yeah, but I don't. It's like, so what if they say that? They have no idea what they're talking about.
Right, but they're saying you have no idea what you're talking about.
Who cares? They can say anything they want about me. Why am I threatened by somebody who has an opinion that has no knowledge about me?
Amen. And if I could have prayed and meditated for a better answer, I couldn't have scripted that one right there, man. That is just like, yeah, who cares? I mean, really. And one of the people that cares is me. So I try to convince people, and specifically we're talking about one or two individuals in my life. And so that's, I still care. I'm you, like you said, of several years ago or whatever. I don't have your wife, Deborah. I'm just over here saying, isn't it enough that I had fucking brain cancer? I worked with Peter Roth. I did my human design. I did my best to learn to love myself. I'm still working on that, but I'm not dead. I feel like, I mean, I don't have some street cred here, and yet I still get questioned, and it frustrates me. Let's put it that way.
That's the Five of Diamonds. It's never fully satisfied. It's always looking for another answer, another thing to do to make progress. You know, it's like, I haven't made enough progress yet. I need to heal more. I need to play more. I need to do more podcasts. I need, you know, it's like never enough, really. And with nothing wrong with that. It's like that's what makes life work, is to want more. And maybe I should be more like you. But I'm the Four of Clubs, so I'm more settled into the four squared and foundational, and not driven to ask more of myself than I can do.
Right. So Peter, let's wrap things up. Is there anything, one of the aspects of this, of my show, as I've been saying, if people just had, you know, something they wanted to tell the world, whether it's related to the pandemic or, you know, US politics or anything, you know, some wisdom, anything. I know this I'm launching on you, but if there's something that you wanted to share that was, you know, kind of a,
Well, remember that you know, my role in life, the cross that I bear has to do with maintaining health and survival. And so that's why, you know, the first thing I would think of is, are people going to be taking enough vitamin D?
right.
So maybe that's really what I need to tell people, is just make sure that your immune system is going to be strong enough to fight off whatever we have to. And all the warnings around, you know, other things that we're asked to do that might not be healthy for us. But, you know, I love to talk, and I love to have people, you know, join my classes. I have, you know, weekly classes, mostly on Monday nights, that are ongoing, and each class has a different theme, and there are different students that come to different classes as people want to. And then I also have my radio show. I have my own podcast. It's on Progressive Radio Network, and it's been weekly for the last 15 and a half years.
Amazing. That's beautiful.
And so I do a lot of shows about consciousness, and, you know, a lot of shows about personal development, but so much about exciting things going on alternatively in reality. You know, so hard to describe it that specifically. And then I also have my private practice where people ask me for all kinds of advice, because I can intuitively see into bodies and see into organs and glands, so I call myself a medical intuitive in those respects. And then I do human design, I do cards, but I also, you know, I can look at past lives and all kinds of very unusual things that people want to know about.
You know, it's interesting. Thank you, Peter. And I hope everybody checks out Peter's work, heartriver.org, and also his radio show on Progressive. And they'll get all the links, Peter, so it'll be something they can find. But I did my first past life reading with a woman, and I would say I was late 20s, early 30s. And she said that I'm not from Earth. and I don't remember exactly where she said I was from, but I left that planet to come to Earth, but I never said goodbye to anybody. And I had a bunch of followers, for lack of a better term. She said I was like, think of a priest. I was leader of some kind of religious thing. And she goes, you came to Earth to learn how to say goodbye because you're really bad at it. And it's funny when I tell my friends that, they laugh because I'm terrible at saying goodbye.
Okay, that's interesting. And I often I'll do past life readings where we actually go back to other planets and see what kind of life there was there and what happened, and actually what kind of being we aren't always human on other planets.
I was not physical. I was non-physical, and I
Yeah,
cannot.
there are planets, right?
I cannot stand the human limitations of the physical body, and so I was wanting to commit suicide. I found this past life reader on the internet. Like I said, probably still dial up, and I remained friends with her for years, and it was just, that's exactly it. I was not physical, and she goes, yeah, you weren't physical, and you came to Earth, and you're learning all these lessons that you don't want to learn.
There was an author I interviewed about a year ago who does past life regressions and has done thousands of them over 20 some odd years. And of those, many hundreds of them, we go back into past lifetimes in other planets and have these problems because of it. And so she identifies those kinds of people as interplanetary people. And we have to really understand that they're not comfortable being on this plane, but they're here for higher reasons, for important reasons, of bringing the greater truths and advanced development of these other planets here to help us get better.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Roth, for being here, Uncle Peter, and I hope you have a wonderful day and stay healthy. Yeah, and thank you, and keep running, man. Keep going for your jogs, and I hope that everything in your body just magically heals, and you can.
Yeah, I'm working on my own genes that don't support me as well as other people. Now, I mean, there are many people with worse genes than mine, but one of the reasons I'm a healer is that I've tried to keep up with my own body, and in doing so, I learned so much that I can help others with. But it's doing all right. I'm 78 years old now and very proud of it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. I love you. And
I love you too. I'm so glad that we're connected.
Me too. All right. Have a beautiful evening, as I said, or day, whatever it is.
It's late in the day. Okay.
All right, brother.
Andrew, all the best.
All right. All the best to you as well. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Constant Constance. Tune in every week for new conversations. And if you want even more, check out Andrew's Patreon for more exclusive content and additional conversations. Hosted and produced by Andrew D'Angelo. Edited and mixed by Lucy Little. Original music by Andrew D'Angelo and Maximilian Moore D'Angelo. Intro is Henrietta Weeks. Thanks so much. See you next time.
You fucking rocked it. Like she doesn't know she says podcast, right? Like she doesn't even know.